Coming live from Chicago, USA is our guest this morning. Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through the industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And before I move forward, may I request you to subscribe, follow, like, and comment on whichever platform you are watching or listening to this show on. And today we have Jason Skeesick, U.S. Army veteran and serial entrepreneur. He has a degree in finance and has worked as a commercial banker to large companies before this. And he can talk a lot on finances, but today we'll be talking more about entrepreneurship and joining his U.S. military training and experience to how exactly he's running a great business right now and how others can also do this. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Thank you, AJ. It's so nice to be here. I really appreciate you having me on and such a welcome, warm introduction.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Jason, in terms of applying military experience to entrepreneurship, India has a large number of people working in the army, in different segments of army, and many are in short service commissions, short service, and then they get retired for whatever reasons, or and then they always look for other avenues. So many of them get into security services and other services of companies. So they do. But in terms of entrepreneurship, several are there. But how can one use their military experience to the best and use it for entrepreneurship? If you can share directly on this particular topic.
Of course, AJ, that's a really great question. And what I would say is, for starters, I was working as a part of a team of people that didn't choose to be together. In most companies, you choose to work together and you can quit and you can go away. When I was in the military, we were in a team of 20 or 30 people, and we had to work together and find ways to overcome our differences to solve very difficult problems, very physically demanding, very mentally demanding problems. And what I found from that was we would find a way to make it work. And we ended up finding very, very close relationships from that. And then separately, I was deployed to Iraq twice, and oftentimes a tool would break for a job, or a machine would go down, or some problem would arise, and there was nobody to come save it for us. And as an entrepreneur, that's very valuable, that I learned how to overcome those problems in the moment and make sure that the mission gets accomplished no matter what. And so if you're listening to this show and you're either an entrepreneur or thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, it's really, really good experience to know that nobody's going to come and save you. When you start your own business, when you start your own company or become an entrepreneur, you are the one that has to come up with a solution for every problem that can arise. And for a lot of folks, that can be very stressful. But with my military experience and with yours, if you're listening, it really helps to know that that's not going to be the end of the world, if that makes sense.
Right, Jason, right. So in terms of, you were deployed in Iraq twice, and then you were also stationed in Germany. So, just in a nutshell, what are the experiences that you think one can remember or can use it, as you said right now, that if there is a breakdown of some equipment, then you look for others to mend it, and also you understand that. Are there other ways that people can look at their experiences during their time in military or their deployments outside, or any other experience that they can come out of the services and use it? Everybody may not have that skill set or the amount of money required for larger operations. A lot of people are, at middle level or junior level in the military, and then they come out and start their own thing. So looking from that perspective, looking from an Indian perspective, what can you suggest in terms of using things for entrepreneurship?
That's a great question. So there are two other things that I can think of that would help you from your military experience, no matter where you're from. Any military in the world would give you this. And the first one is a very clear understanding of rank and structure. And so you may be right, you may be wrong, but you learn very quickly how to work within a ranked structure. And so because of that, when you go into business, I had two entrepreneur friends that I started my first company with, and we never fought when we disagreed. because we would take a vote. It would be yes, no, and no. And if we said 2 no's, then it was no. And I think that in a lot of civilian businesses, there's a lot more emotions tied up into these types of actions. Whereas with a military mindset, it's very easy for you to separate your emotions from these problems and overcome them. And the second thing that I think the military does very, very well, and if you've been in the military, you can apply to being an entrepreneur, is they make sure that they train you so that the very least capable person that you could possibly find can achieve that result that you're looking for. So a lot of times I think companies expect somebody to be hired or to be brought into the team and be able to do amazing work with very little training. But in the military, they have to be able to train every single person in the entire Army, Air Force, Navy, or Marines how to do a certain task. And so the way they train it is, for us, it's like McDonald's. It's like just dialed in. It's step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. You never break from that. And because of that, they have an unbelievable ability to regularly reproduce incredible results with not incredible labor, with not incredible employees, right? Most people that join the military, there's a broad range of people join the military, right? Some people are very intelligent and very experienced, and other people are not very intelligent or very motivated. And yet, across the entire military, they find a way to train it so every single person is capable of achieving their job.
Right. Jason, now let's go a bit further backward. When somebody retires, and especially when they have given some time in military, not a full service like of a proper, so many years, that what is the mindset between the two? One is who has spent his whole life in the military. They are well prepared for it. They have a certain amount of bank balance. They have certain amount of money. So they don't have that necessity that one needs to get into the workforce or create something. That's up to them. But people who are in short service, they know that they need to go out and restart a life. Generally, it can be a stressful thing to think. What is the general mindset? And within that mindset, how does it work out? Do they start planning before? Do they go out and immediately jump desperately into finding something or a job? Most of the jobs I see people do in security companies, you become a head of security or any other job that you can get. How do you deal with that thing that's going on in your mind, especially last a few years before you actually are about to come out from your service? And how do they transition that to the next stage of being gainfully employed or even as an entrepreneur?
I am so glad you asked me that question, AJ, because actually, if you're listening to this podcast and you were short service and not a full retiree from the military, you are the lucky one. Because the person who stays in the military for their entire career, they have somebody behind them to come behind them and help them. They have a guaranteed paycheck. They have an experience having to follow very rigid rules. But if you're the person who gets out quickly, no one is coming to save you, and you know that. And so when you go to start a business, there is no failure. In America, we say a phrase, burn the ships. You take the land, and the only way you know you're going to take that island is by burning the ships. So there is no possible plan B or retreat. And so to those folks that are short service, I would say you guys are the lucky ones. You're the ones who actually know what it feels like to have your back against the wall and have to fight your way up and to take that hill, if that makes sense. And so it's really the folks who've stayed in that system and played it easy for those 20 years or however long your service is that would have a much more difficult time, in my opinion, to start their own business. Those people may be better suited to be employees for somebody else, in my opinion, humbly.
Right, Jason. Now look at it from this side. So they go out, they start something, and then your experience as a military, one's experience as a military, it's following the rules. But outside, it's a much more of a civilian setup. People are much more, different way of living, much more, you can say, free to be live the life they want. Okay, and you see the world from a different angle, much more disciplined manner. It takes some time to recalibrate to the new way of life. In that phase, when you start as an entrepreneur in whatever small or medium or larger level, how do you build a team? Because you think differently, but
It's
your
hard.
employees, those are from different background. How is that match coming up? Means how will it work? What you need to learn, or what you need to tell them? How do you bring and come to the same level of thinking to make the business run?
Well, for starters, AJ, that's a really great question, and it's something that I think many entrepreneurs who are former veterans have a struggle with. What I will tell you is the way that I was able to try to reproduce that best was by identifying my core values and those things that were really important to me. And they're very influenced by the military. Not all of them, but many of them are influenced by the military. And then when I went to go find my team, I made sure that I found a core value fit. So I made sure that when I interviewed new employees or when I brought somebody aboard, that they were going to be aligned with the way that I view how we work and the community that we're building and the product and the clients that we serve. And if they didn't, I would either not hire them in the first place or we would eliminate them from the team. And so what that brought up, did I have a military team? No, I didn't have a military team. I had a few people who were veterans, but I had to sort of meet in the middle. And by doing that process of uncovering my core values, the combination of it's actually military mindset and the spirit of the puppy, which is a totally different energy that I bring to the table. And by combining those two things, we were able to put together a disciplined team who knew how to have fun and serve the client. And when something doesn't go perfectly, not to overreact.
Right, Jason, right. So you see, how does an entrepreneur, a military experienced person turning into an entrepreneur, how does he build his core values? In military, you are leading a very straightforward line. When you are going for sales, or your team who's going for sales or doing something, developing business, then there is something called commissions. A lot of places you need to share commissions, deal with that aspect of life. How should one take it? How should one deal with it and weave it around their core values?
I mean, that's a great question. I think to uncover your core values starts with understanding who you are as a person and as an organization. And so if you're a clothing manufacturer, it may not be important that your personal core values are affecting the business. But if you're a fitness professional or a lawyer or a salesperson or even a physician, and you're engaging with your clients on a regular basis, then your core values do matter. And so it's really important that you can find first about yourself. You have to understand yourself and what motivates you, what gives you energy, what drains you at the end of the day. For me, I can meet people all day long and spend time in a big group of people. I can talk to them all day. I can run around and do stuff with them. And that doesn't drain my energy. I actually get energy from that. I'm buzzing from this call, which is at night for me. Now you put me in front of a computer and you make me, read through spreadsheets and check the billing and make sure that the credit card numbers were correct. And that drains my energy. And so it's incumbent upon me as an entrepreneur to understand those things that I do really well, and then try to bring in folks that can highlight the things that they do well and that complement my skill set. And so where the military mindset may be my strength, my strength, and I keep us disciplined, keep us high energy, and keep us on time, there may be somebody else who comes in that is in charge of doing the billing or the accounts receivable or any number of other things within the organization.
Right, Jason. You have a lot of energy. Indeed, you are doing the second podcast this evening, and
Yes, sir.
you run a CrossFit gym in Chicago. You are much more into fitness. A lot of people cannot match up to that. Even if they are ex-military, not everybody can continue with that same routine, and that's a great thing, to learn, because fitness is what is going to take you forward. Now, talking of entrepreneurship, Jason, that most of the people, they look at security agencies and other sort of stuff, whatever is possible. Many people in India go back to their villages, they get back to farming, and it's in whatever way they can do that. But many are there, their children are in cities, they want to stay with their children. India, we have that sort of a culture, staying with family, with when you grow up, your children grow up, you want to stay with them. And
Yeah.
that's the way we Indians are.
I like that.
So in that setup, You know, you are the founder of Spear and Clover Equity Partners, so that more into finance and all that stuff. Then again, you have a gym. What are the other sectors now? Online has opened up. What are the other opportunities, sectors that military experienced people can look at, and look at the world in the way the world actually exists beyond their military life?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for starters, in the military, you don't learn how to fight. You don't learn how to shoot. You don't learn how to protect a building. What you learn is how to solve problems. And in some cases, that's fighting. And in some cases, that's shooting. And in other cases, that's installing fiber optic cable, which is what I did when I was in the military. Or it's digging a hole in the middle of the desert sometimes. But you learn how to solve problems. And so when I think about entrepreneurship in post-military life, it's just me solving problems. In some cases, it's been fitness. In other cases, it's been consulting. I've run Facebook marketing campaigns for myself and for other companies for years. And those types of things are just me solving problems. And so I'm constantly reminded that my military service gave that to me, because often I see people say, I have this problem and I don't know what to do with it, so I'm just going to throw my hands up in the air and give up. Whereas almost every single military person that I would have ever met would see a problem and say, okay, step one, let's check the gas tank. Step two, let's make sure that there's energy in the battery. Step three, do we have the keys? Step four, let's make sure all the cables are connected. And eventually, that military person will have troubleshot their way down the order of operations and will find the solution to that problem. And so you can apply that incredibly easy using technology available to us in the internet and on our computers and on our phones. So there are automations you can do. You can do e-commerce businesses, which are incredibly data-driven and troubleshooting driven. They're problems that you're solving. And so these are opportunities. There's marketing funnels is a famous way that people earn a living. I've done it as well for years. And to make a marketing funnel, it's just you troubleshooting a problem. I get people to click on a link, they go to a landing page. Then they click another link, they put in their email. Oh, we lose them right there. Okay, let's see what's wrong with that copy and let's adjust that particular part of the problem and we'll eventually solve it. And so this iterative process of working together in a tight team to solve complex problems is much more easy for somebody who has military service that understands this compartmentalization and this ability to troubleshoot problems as they arise.
Right, Jason, right. So from a military life, one has gone to entrepreneurship and you are well adjusted. So for an individual. Now the most important part is the family part. So once your business is running, so earlier you used to be out of the house for most of the time and only, sometimes you used to be with family, but there was a routine to it. You come back, there was expectation that you will spend more time with the family. But again, it's a new life. You are out most of the time. You are building stuff. It's like you're restarting your life. You get my point? And then it takes you again out of the house. Relationships take a new form. It takes there are expectations within the family itself, from your spouse, from your children, and they want to be around. But you are talking most of the time about your struggles of business. Earlier, it was not like that. Life was a bit more planned, stable when you were in military. Your money was coming at the end of the month. Amidst all these things, how to build up not only your business, but also how to succeed in this business and still love your life with your family. And another aspect it can happen is that coming from such a planned life and getting into such a new form of life, you start feeling that you are losing grip on life and that you may need to, you don't control anything. You may be a senior person, somebody, you had people under your command. And here, it is not people under your command. Maximum it is that they are employees who are working for you, and there is nothing to keep them stuck to you except for the paychecks that you are giving them.
Yeah.
Or if you can show them the larger vision. So how do you adjust to this new format of family, giving them time, business, and still love or live the life that you want to?
This is a great question. I love it. And so I'm going to break it into two parts. So the first part of the question
Yeah.
is how to strengthen your relationships while you're building a company, which is a very difficult thing. And then the second part of the question was, I believe, how to employ and maintain relationships with employees who are only bound to you by a check, by a credit card, or by a payment. And so for the first part, here's what I'll say. It is very difficult. The most important thing that any entrepreneur ever could have is a supportive spouse and family. That's it. Because we're visionaries, AJ, and we're dreamers. And so we see an open field and we say, there should be a building. And I'm going to put a store in it. And then we're going to do this. And we're going to spend a lot of money before we ever make any money, and a lot of hard work before we ever make any money. So these visionaries need to be able to go back to their family, their wife, their children, and their other family that they live with. And they need to be able to look them in the face and say, I need you to trust me and take this walk with me. And if you can have somebody that's that supportive, I have been blessed to have two different women in my life as an entrepreneur, one of whom was not supportive, and I thought I could make it work. And she was a wonderful person. But at the end of the day, it just never could have worked because it continually would take energy from me. And then I met my wife, Donna, who is upstairs right now. And she has been supportive of my vision every step of the way, to the extent where there were times where she was supporting us and had to trust that one day what we were doing would pay off. And ultimately, the way that I honor that is by being honest with her and not hiding the things that are stressing me out or the financial positions, because that's where you get into real trouble. It's not when you lose money 1 month. It's when you lose money for 7 months and now your account's negative and you never told your wife or your husband. That's where people get into real trouble. If we feel like we're in this thing together, then we can take that ride together. And if we can't, that's fine. Then we shouldn't be an entrepreneurial family. And that's fine. But I don't think you can force it with somebody who's not supportive of your mission and your vision. It's the only way it works. And to your second question, AJ, if there's anything that I am good at, it's managing a team of people who are not connected to me for money. I ran a CrossFit gym for 12 years. And I don't know if I know you guys have CrossFit, but I'm not sure if you're familiar. Nobody makes their whole living there. Most of my employees worked for me for 3, 4, 5 hours a week. I was paying them, very, very little. They were teachers and plumbers and police officers, and then they would work there because they loved it so much. And so what that taught me was I can't ask them to do things that I wouldn't do myself. And I can't expect them to show up to things and not be paid. And I can't ask them to come in on their off days or any of those things that would mistreat them. And so because of that, I developed a team that loved each other. We went on vacations together. I took my team to Hawaii. We went on an RV trip through the country a couple of times, and we were so tight because I realized in order for them to be the fuel for my rocket ship, I needed to be the fuel for their rocket ship. Does that make sense, AJ?
Very much, very much. You have, Jason answered the most difficult part of this, transitions in a very nice manner. And I'm sure this is going to be helpful to a lot of people. When you may be the best master, but when it comes to yourself, implementing them to your own life, it's a very different game.
Very different. Yes. My wife and I were just talking about that literally before this call. We were saying how difficult it's always easier to tell somebody the right thing to do than it is to do it yourself.
Right.
That's why doctors are overweight and,
right.
and lawyers get divorces.
Absolutely. You see, I'll tell you, I've been on a television background and I should know more about lighting, but now I don't care. I more care about, I care more about content, conversation, and all that stuff. It's early in the morning, a bit lazy, but one thing I know that I'll be not lazy in asking the right questions for the audience.
Yes, sir.
I will try to improve, and some things are important, but they some things are non-negotiable. So conversation and real content is non-negotiable. So it happens. That's the way the life is. The more you know, the more you also know that life can go without it also for some time. But there are some things which cannot wait. Like this great conversation that we had. It was time for us to have this conversation, and we had it. And I'm sure it is going to be very, very helpful to a lot of people, not only in India, but also globally where this show goes. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you for breaking this whole transition sort of stuff from from being a military person experience and using it in the real din and noise of real time life. Okay.
Thank you so much for having me,
Thank you.
AJ. It's been a real honor. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. So with this, it's a wrap on this edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Have a great day. Yes.